Let's do breakout room.
Hey.
That would be fun.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 21st, 2023 work session of the Planning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiba Samuel and I serve as evening, everyone, and welcome to this March 21st. Okay, so let's try this once more. Good evening and welcome to the March 21st, 2023 work session of the Planning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiba Samuel and I serve as chair of the Planning Committee. We will begin with introductions of our other commissioners. From my left, please.
Andrew Blumenthal, Planning Committee.
Rebecca Wilden, Planning Committee.
Rick Winiker, Planning Committee.
Shauna Neely, Planning Committee.
If everyone has had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from our February work session, I would entertain a motion to amend and or adopt.
Winiker, motion to approve minutes.
Neely, second.
Motion by Winiker, second by Neely. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Thank you. Now to the next item on our agenda. We have several now mandatory referrals. And I think we have a few, or at least one, to pull for discussion. It's number 10. Alberto, if we could do a brief walkthrough of that one, and we have a commissioner with some questions, comments.
Sure. Good evening, Alberto Gonzalez, Planning Department staff. 2310-10 is a proposal by Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation to acquire a 3-acre parcel. This is in actually town of Huntersville, and they did provide information on its consistency with their adopted land use plan. And they did make a comment specifically about thoroughfares running through or adjacent to the parcel, wanting to make note of that. We do have someone from County Asset and Facilities Management here if you have specific questions on that acquisition.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden.
Yes, I was just curious if the planning department had any issues with creating an MOU between the town of Huntersville and the planning department, since that's what the town of Huntersville would like to do.
Charlotte Planning Department has an issue with that.
It was
Between-
mentioned in the comments that.
Right, that would be planning, town of Huntersville Planning Department.
Okay.
So that would be town of Huntersville and County Asset and Facilities Management or Park and Rec, whatever negotiations they would want to do.
Would you all be opposed to there being a comment by the planning committee saying that we would support an MOU like that?
Trying to think what my guts tell me and what I should actually say. I think that's a topic that we probably should discuss more internally, because it wouldn't be a decision that the commission would make, if that makes sense. It would be an agreement that the city of Charlotte would have, and the Mecklenburg County would have to entertain. So I would be cautious about making a statement, public statement on the subject without having any internal discussions to at least see what the appetite is for implementing said suggestion, if that makes sense. Yes.
Any additional comments?
I
Excuse
could.
me.
Commissioner
Yes.
Winiker, I've had, before the meeting, and I'm just going to kind of summarize some of the stuff I've said before, but this is kind of not only for the record, but for the public too. And that is kind of an ongoing concern. As a former Mecklenburg County Park and Rec Commissioner, I know that a lot of time and effort went into the MEC playbook process. And as a member of the public, I can't find a lot of detailed information about the results of MEC playbook. There's some general language, but not a whole lot of very specific language. And then furthermore, my other concern is whether or not, or how much information the county is or willing to share with the city or other communities, especially citizens, with respect to what their plans are for future parks. And so, for instance, I want to see every single parcel that's on today's docket to go to the county. Absolutely. I want to see more land acquisition, and I'm encourage it and don't oppose any of them. The point being is that we are getting small little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And what would be helpful is if the county is willing to share with departments, city departments, and citizens kind of what is the larger piece of the puzzle. There are some assets on GIS, but it's out of date and not clear. And it would be something that I think should be something that should be shared. For instance, how many parcels and where are the parcels that the county has acquired over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years? That would be one good question. So that would be my ongoing ask of the county. Thank you.
Let me just respond, because we were discussing that, and maybe because a lot of that information is on Polaris now, and maybe we could do maybe a demonstration and we'll talk about where that information is, because right now there's a lot of that data and information is available on Polaris, on Charlotte Explorers, maybe more of a, let's kind of do a demonstration of how to find it. Now, if you want a separate spreadsheet of all county-owned parcels, that's a whole separate ask that we could.
And I don't mean to make an ask that's, that puts staff at the city or the county to a whole bunch of extra effort. I want to see blah, blah, blah. I'm not asking for that. But what has been difficult to find has been with direct asks of the county, for instance, lists of parcels that they've acquired, from a certain period of time forward. I'm aware of what is available on MEC Polaris and use it regularly. I also find it to be difficult to make large data requests on it. And I realize there are some limitations with the ArcGIS resources available too. I'll be happy to follow up with you with any ideas you have for me, because again, I don't want to put anyone to any extra effort, but I can't imagine that the county doesn't have a spreadsheet somewhere with a list of parcels that they've acquired. And I would just say, can we have a copy? Thank you.
Acquire for park purpose or just for in general?
The county, whether
The
for
county in
for
general.
Park and Rec, for
Park
instance.
and Rec.
Yeah.
I think you might want to mention about Bert next month.
Just about to add that Kathy just confirmed that Bert will be before us next month for a little bit of a deeper dive to that request specifically. And maybe over the next 2 weeks or so, we can better define, what his charge is when he comes to present, so that we can get the answers that we need. And Commissioner Winiker, I'll follow up with you to make sure that that information flows to Kathy and then to Bert so that when he comes before us, he'll have the specific information that we're requesting.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I will just make a note in general, not about a specific mandatory referral, but while we're taking an opportunity to make comments, I noticed that in this specific groups, I can't say that I've noticed it before, but in this specific group of mandatory referrals for Park and Rec, I noticed that the majority are R3 parcels that are in the middle of the larger R3 parcel, and not knowing what's surrounding or what's planned for the remainder of that that undeveloped land is not concerning, but just adds to a level of curiosity that I didn't have before. And maybe that's something that we can kind of take a deeper dive with Bert with as well. But I just noticed that these land purchases or proposed purchases are in the middle of larger swaths of R3 zone land, and the remaining of this R3 land is somewhat in my very narrow view, limiting in terms of what can be developed on the remaining in certain instances. And I just obviously we want to support Park and Rec in these land acquisitions, as we know they've been difficult. But it's just a level of inquiry that I didn't have before with the specific batch and their locations. So just wanted to press for that. Not, again, I won't label it as a concern, but just curiosity there about if there is a master plan of some sort for these specific parcels, or if there is development tag teaming that's happening there. So if there's no other comments, we can approve these in one shebang.
Oh.
If I have a willing commissioner to make a motion.
Winokur is willing to make a motion. And that motion would be that the planning committee reviewed mandatory referral reports 2302 through 11 on March 21st, 2023, and have no additional comments for the submitting agency.
Motion by Winokur, second by Blumenthal. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you. On to our next agenda item. It seems like forever, Kathy, since we've seen you.
Yes, so to give you a little break, Erin and I are going to split the presentation. So the front part she will do, and then I'll pick up from there.
Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. Next slide. So again, I'm Erin Henson, and I'm a planner with the Long Range Planning Division. For today's update, we will go over some familiar overview material, a summary of engagement since public launch, and also walk through the planned CAP workshop exercises. So as we've mentioned in past presentations, the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which is the overarching vision for growth and development over the next 20 years. This was adopted in June of 2021. In March of 2022, the city adopted the Charlotte Future 2040 Policy Map, which translated the comprehensive plan's place-based policies to specific geographies. Also nested underneath the comprehensive plan are important efforts such as the strategic mobility plan and the Unified Development Ordinance. So this is an impressive body of work, and we're now diving into the next step, which is the community area planning process. Again, community area planning is up next in putting the comprehensive plan into action. Community area plans will provide additional guidance, but they don't replace the comprehensive plan. The plans are intended to provide that next level of guidance for things like place type changes, mobility, capital facility improvements, as well as supportive programs and amenities. Developing 14 concurrent community plans is more equitable and efficient than previous small planning efforts. So we're excited about this effort. Again, as a refresher, the CAP process is a 5-step process that we're aiming to complete over the next few years. Phase 1 will identify those community priorities based on their existing needs. More detail on this can be found in our community reports, which are now live on our website. Phase 2 begins very soon, the end of this month, next week. And that will ensure that the place type designations support the community's priorities and needs. Phase 3 will recommend infrastructure projects and supportive programs to help address the community's priorities. Phase 4 will develop an implementation strategy that will outline how the recommendations may be put into action over the next 5 to 10 years. And then finally, review and adoption that's scheduled for 2025. So the expected outcomes of CAP, again, as a refresher, there will be 14 community area plans that will include infrastructure recommendations, development concepts, supportive program needs, and an implementation strategy. So the expectation is that these plans will be used by city staff and appointed elected officials in decision-making processes. And then once adopted, the recommended place type changes, those will be integrated into the existing citywide 2040 policy map. And then finally, issues identified in multiple communities may lead to future recommendations for citywide policy changes. And those will be considered in future comprehensive plan updates. So community area plans, they play similar roles as other policy documents. They do provide guidance and informed decision-making, but they will not create regulations or laws. They may identify needed investments, but they will not provide funding for those investments. They will recommend zoning changes, but they will not automatically rezone a property upon adoption. And the intent of the plan is really to help guide the development and not to stop it. So again, our engagement strategy, we'll jump into this. You guys have seen this slide as well, but this project includes 3 types of engagement tactics: constant, coordinated, and collaborative. So here you can see the different types of engagement that fall within each bucket. So this is a glimpse into a few of our engagement analytics since public launch. These numbers are exported on a bi-weekly basis. And as Catherine mentioned in the Planning Commission presentation, we are keeping an eye on these patterns to determine where we should allocate additional marketing resources. And then since launch, we've also had an audience with all of you and other appointed elected officials, as well as a handful of external partners. We work to identify clear measures of success as relates to our engagement tactics. So things like engagement rate and retention of participants. So once this process is a little further underway, we will not only be able to report back on numbers like this, but we will also be able to report back on our success in terms of those measures. So those will be coming as we get a little further underway in the engagement process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy to discuss the workshop exercise in more detail.
Thank you. Thank you. Like, wait, was that my phone?
All right.
So again, the objective is facilitating conversations around focus areas and collecting feedback. So I think I've mentioned, and Catherine's mentioned before, that the policy mapping effort that we did, which was a very large effort with an equitable lens attached to it so that we're treating all areas of the community the same. That work is very solid, but there are some particular areas, we throw around the number of maybe like 20% or so, where it's a more specific situation. It could have gone one way or another in a place type. So those are the areas that staff has identified for workshops within each of the areas. And I mentioned that folks are welcome to stay at one table or move around. And also it's going to help us to identify where potential refinements could better reflect some of the community's priorities, and then overall big picture where we're seeing certain patterns that might be repeating in certain parts of the community as well. So the materials you have I've given them to you as just 8.5 by 11s, but these will be large, poster size materials at each of the tables. And so there'll be the aerial map, the discussion guide, and then discussion questions. And feedback will be collected by staff. And so we'll actually be writing the feedback down as the conversation's occurring. So the example we're going to look at today is in the West Middle geography, and it is neighborhood 1 adjacent to manufacturing and logistics. So that was a scenario that we saw kind of repeat itself in the southwest, west, and north side of the city. So next slide. The first step would be just helping stakeholders orient themselves as to where we're talking about and using the aerial map. So that includes parcel lines, street names, and major property owners. Next slide. And then we'll reference the discussion guide. So that's the piece that you have that shows the map with the place types on it, and then descriptions of each of the place types. And kind of walk stakeholders through what the story of this particular scenario is and what kind of feedback we're looking for. So as I mentioned in this one, it's the neighborhood 1 place type adjacent to manufacturing and logistics. And that, as I mentioned, does happen throughout the community, not just in this particular geography. In this particular scenario is probably a more simpler one, and that's why we're continuing to develop the materials. So this is the one that we kind of have most fleshed out because it was kind of the easiest one to create, but not all of them are kind of this cut and dry, I guess you'd say, like one instance or another. So in this particular condition, you'll see from what's shown is that there's neighborhood 1 that's surrounded by manufacturing and logistics in terms of both existing conditions and entitlements. And quite honestly, from a mapping perspective, there's not a whole lot that you can do in this particular situation. It could take other measures, or really more of a clarifying, because in the mapping we did, there was a conversation, there was priority around neighborhoods and also a priority around jobs. So there's, in this particular area, in one particular case, can't remember if it's shown on the next slide or not. Yes, there we go. Looking at, so this particular parcel is zoned for today industrial, but manufacturing uses, but is currently like a mobile home park or a residential community. So that's kind of a legacy that we see throughout the community because of the way the ordinances worked years and years ago. But in this particular condition, it would be unlikely, it'd be unlikely to develop as something else. So what are we prioritizing? And that's a conversation that we'll have with the community. There's not an answer that we can give at the workshop or even here tonight. So aspirationally, what's the priority in a situation like this? And again, I'll mention that these are conversations that we'll be having in other geographies as well. Next slide. So this is the discussion question handout. So we've kind of talked about the first two questions. The third one really is getting at the work that'll be done next year, but kind of like seeing what some of the appetite and some of the suggestions are the community will have is around projects and programs. So any concerns they have about the development pattern and suggestions for addressing those concerns related to the development pattern. So that could be things like sidewalks, not in this particular case, maybe, but the list like sidewalks, art projects, intersection improvements, those types of things. So we've also talked about commissioners, your role again, getting the word out, but then also being part of the workshops. And so we're very excited that you're wanting to do that. And we have workshop training that is mandatory for anyone that is facilitating workshops. So putting some guidelines around it is a long effort in many meetings. So and this would be for the in-person meetings, but we're thinking that 2 commissioners per workshop would be a way that could kind of spread that out and ensure that we could have commissioners at maybe more of the meetings. I mentioned that the training is required. So we've set up a Sign Up Genius for you to register for the workshops. And there's a QR code there, and I can send the link out in a follow-up email after this meeting. And the training, the dates for the training will be the Tuesday before the workshop, and all the training will be here, about hour and a half, something, probably an hour. Another thing is we'd ask you to arrive 30 minutes prior to the workshop, just to kind of help get everything situated. But once you've signed up, we can send you a calendar invite. So maybe having those ideas around the expectations in mind might help you plan out with your calendar a little bit better as well. Next slide. So call to action. So again, promoting the workshops, and we've been tracking the registrations that we've had, and those numbers are updated weekly, bi-weekly. And this would be the Tuesday lunch is virtual, so no need for commission support, although we encourage you to attend Thursday evening and Saturday mornings and signing up to facilitate a workshop. And we have all the dates and locations posted on our website. And again, we have the ambassador toolkit available. I think sometimes I've heard from a lot of neighborhood folks who want to get the word out and they forget or can't find that it's available. So sometimes it's sending the direct link to people is very helpful. And that's it. So Aaron and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Winokur.
We had talked about this before, and the two things that I am very interested in at least hearing about. Obviously, nobody wants to put their thumb on the scale at a community meeting of what directing what people should want or not want. But one question becomes sort of things that are scarce in our community, and that's like ped access, sidewalks you mentioned, things like that. Those are typically pedestrian crossings, safe streets, and parks. And while you'd indicated before that, that the county would be invited and they'd be, at their table, I've been to other meetings where, they'll do that. It seems to me that questions about transportation and about parks, what is possible, what is like conceivably possible, not necessarily what's planned, would be, I haven't seen the training toolkit. I'm looking forward to that, but I would hope that that's part of the conversation. It's part educational too, you can ask citizens of Charlotte for things that have not existed before is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and on that third column of the discussion guide where staff will be taking notes, that's exactly where those items would go. And we have an interdepartmental team that we're working with. So we're definitely, as we did with the comprehensive plan and the policy map, we'll share information out with each of those departments. Because I mean, planning, there's a lot of things that we are more dot connectors for. We don't actually run those programs, but we really do try to figure out how can we leverage the resources we have in various ways. So we'll be happy to do that.
And I'm sure, and I know from, everything I've seen so far that you guys do a great job in the planning department and I appreciate it. My comments are also more towards, hopefully we can get interdepartmental participation in a real meaningful way, because I think these community meetings are very important and potentially, will shape our city. Thank you.
How are registration numbers looking for like during the day versus like at night versus weekend? How is that looking?
That's a great question. Aaron might be able to answer more than me, but I think the last time I looked at it, they were fairly even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang. I'm just not a morning person, so I was mostly asking about the Saturday ones, but thank you.
But that day works for families. Some families can plan around it. They're not working and,
I'm just a dog mom, so.
listen, I don't either, but I would probably be in the bed too. If I didn't have to work.
Oh, I was about to say you wish.
Oh, yeah. Don't sleep for
Really, your name came up in all three meetings that I had today. So,
today.
mhm. You're welcome. You're in high demand. Well, it's town hall season, so,
Oh, Yep.
A few questions. People are ready to pounce. I think they're, and rightfully so, kind of holding my feet to the fire. Cause like you told me this was coming and I'm trying to sign up, but I don't understand this, and this. So I'm the bridge to pass along some feedback, and I experienced it as well because I couldn't remember which geography I'm in. So as I was signing up for sessions, I think I signed up for all of them in my area because I didn't know which one was mine. In the registration, there's a grayed out section of a box of some sort. I think there's a map there, but it's not very visible. So if I'm signing up for the session on the 28th of March, and I don't know if that's a real date or not, and that is for West Inner, for instance, how do I know I'm in West Inner if I can't look at that map as I'm registering? So that is was a very, in my opinion, valid point that this person who was attempting to register, and they kept having to go out, look at the calendar, look at a map, and then come back to the registration. And it seemed very cumbersome. And I just don't want us to lose people who are frustrated in the registration process.
Mhm.
So making it as easy as possible to plug in, connect, sign up, would probably serve us all. So I wanted to press forward that observation and point of contact. I don't even know if that's possible. But again, as I'm registering and I still picture the page, at the top of my registration page, there's I think
It's a graphic,
it's a graphic of some sort. Maybe that should just be the map of what you're registering for. Again, I don't know the feasibility behind that, but it would be helpful because I would have to literally
It's
close
a
out the
huge step.
registration, go
Yeah.
back and look at the map and go back and look at the calendar and
Yeah, so Erin is the expert and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but which I might very well be, but I think the challenge is the limitations of the way you set up the event.
Yeah.
It is. Eventbrite's very limited. What we were able to do in the individual geography, when you register in the description, we've linked the online map. So it should say, if you cannot find or do not know your geography, click here, and it should direct you to the online map that we have online where they can type in their address, and it should tell them which geography they're in. If it's not showing up though, we definitely need to know, because we should have that feature on there.
Is that new, like in the last 24 hours?
No, ma'am.
No. It's in the, it opens up a separate window. With the map.
What's today?
But we
I can
are
double check.
looking at, to be fair, we are looking at a new kind of event platform that's a little bit more robust and will cost us a lot more money. You gotta
I know.
pay to play on some of these features. And we are exploring other options, because I mean, Charlotte has a million events and
Mhm.
definitely stuff like this. They're using different platforms because they need more robust navigation, but they just cost more.
Understood. And I figured it was some sort of limitation, but I just wanted to see how we might better explore that option. The workbook, I think it's the digital version of the workbook that's in here. It's not my neighborhood report, it's the workbook. In diving into that workbook and realizing that community area planning engagement sessions are happening through, I think we have them through December now. That workbook has a deadline of December 31st or something like that to provide feedback. Have we thought about offering an extended time frame for those geographies who are getting their engagement a little bit later in the year? Like if I'm West Middle, for instance, if that's first at bat, I have 6, 7, 8 months to play around with my workbook. But if I'm, and not to say that these geographies can't start sooner, but I don't know if that's something that, what's the rationale, I guess is my question.
Yeah, the intent, well, is multifaceted, but a big piece of it was for those folks that are in the second wave that want to get started and do something and submit it. That gives them the opportunity to start at the same time as everybody else. If we start going through it and we see that, hey, there's a real desire and need to extend out the deadline, we're absolutely happy to do that. I mean, I think we know that we're not going to just follow down this path and not have to pivot around. Yeah.
Definitely have become pros at that. I think that at this juncture, those are all of my questions about process or engagement process. If we toggle back to the training and 2 commissioners per in-person workshop, are you imagining, let's just say 6 of us show up just because either we all live in the same area, but in terms of limiting 2 per, I'm imagining that we're assuming that it's 2 people that are kind of in y'all's hair, so to speak, during an event. And then the rest of us kind of hang back and sit down somewhere,
Yeah, that's
for lack of a better word. Well, you guys are well aware that at the beginning of this, I said that we have to march at around the same beat or something to that effect, that we have to be reading in the same book, in the same chapter, on the same page at all times. So I definitely have a high level of appreciation for the training, although I hate to put that additional task on your plate, but I'd rather the preparation, the connectedness, and the uniformity than some of the randomness that I feared. So thank you for kind of closing the gap there.
it's for our staff too, to be clear, to provide that consistent message. So everyone facilitating knows.
And to be clear, the requirement is that if you're going to participate and help facilitate a workshop, then you must first attend training.
Yes.
And there will be a training session. I think I heard you say the Tuesday before
The
each
Thursday.
engagement or each workshop, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Wilden.
Sorry, I have so many questions. So I just noticed that for two of them that I wanted to attend, the ones on Thursday, the trainings would be happening during our planning committee
Oh, the planning
meetings.
commission meeting?
Yeah,
Okay,
so just like,
okay.
I mean, like, I don't mind missing the training, but it would probably be good if, yeah, I think that's more like a flag, because I'll still probably sign up for the one that's like that week, but yeah, just a flag, because y'all are already like staffing these meetings, so like 2 meetings in one night would just be ridiculous.
And just to Commissioner Wilden's point, the ask is not that a commissioner attend every Tuesday before a workshop. As long as they've completed one training session, is that suffice?
Well, we'll be going over the, all of these activities and focus areas will be different for each one. So that's part of it. So you can kind of orient yourself.
The trainings will be specific to.
Yes, they're specific.
Every-
Yes.
Every
Yeah.
workshop series is a different geography. So it'll be a
Yes.
different conversation.
Different conversations, but the same concepts.
Nope.
Well, we're finding that we're having to change the specifics around each of the focus area. They're not the same at each table. Based on whatever you're talking about, the elements might be slightly different. And it might be that you might be more comfortable at one table than we're going to make assignments, but you might get some say, I'm not comfortable with this because I don't feel like I can handle questions or facilitating or whatever. I mean, that could happen.
Okay. I'm going to say this out loud and for the benefit of my commissioners who are watching online. If you are planning to participate and or help facilitate a in-person workshop. In-person workshops are always on a Thursday or
And
Saturday. If you are planning to participate and or help facilitate a workshop on a Thursday or Saturday, you must participate in the training offered the Tuesday prior to that specific workshop. Commissioner Seeley.
Remind me the time on the Tuesdays. I don't have a free Tuesday for 3 years. Because every single board I'm on is on Tuesdays. So I would like to participate in this, but curious.
Is there a virtual option for participation or for training? I'm sorry.
There is not, because it's an in-person thing and it's a hands-on thing. So there's not a virtual option. Us.
For the training or?
Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for a new date and time? If not Tuesday, it has Wednesday, the day before the actual meeting.
We'll be fresh that way anyway.
Do we have in person? Don't we have a meeting on that
Either
Wednesday?
that, or if it's only. a
That's the
lunch, it could be over-
online.
if It's only an hour, it could be over lunch too.
Yeah, actually, it looks like these are that you just sent Jane, you're on Thursday, so.
Okay.
Yeah, let us look at this. The intent was that it was on a Tuesday.
Tuesday
Yeah.
over lunch I could do. Sure.
Tuesday at lunch.
Yeah, it could be an hour. The other thing is, since only 6 of the now 13 of us are in this room. And as much as I would love to say that the other 7 are all watching this meeting.
No, that was more from my memory as
Right,
well.
but I think we really need to send this around because these
Okay.
start prior to our next full commission meeting. And there will be people that don't know that and may sign up. So if you wouldn't mind. sending-
Yeah, I'll send a follow-up with, that, and I'll include, the links to sign up and all that information.
We didn't fully understand until just now, so there's no way that our fellow commissioners.
Yeah, sure.
The step number 2 does say accept training invitation. The third, okay, sorry, never mind.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
misspoke. I apologize for that.
Yeah, we'll wait for further guidance from Kathy and team on that. Quick on the draw. Are there any additional questions, comments?
Only one, you might be the next.
Oh,
Only one, and then you may have gone over some of it, and I frankly just missed it, but as staff is taking notes on all of the feedback that's collected during these workshops, kind of how is that going to be compiled, dispersed? Is that something that will be shared with us in any way, shape, or form? Obviously, assuming it's relevant, right? And then, well, actually, we'll start there.
Well, again, that's another area of Aaron's expertise. So I'll let.
So we're finalizing that tracking strategy right now, very similar to the policy map process where everything's posted online, very transparent, categorizing and tagging comments, assigning responses, things like that. So it'll be very similar to the policy map process.
Awesome. That was my assumption, but it's just good to know. And then, my only other question, and I think we touched on this just now several months ago. Has there been outreach directly to neighborhood associations to encourage them to help recruit for these? Only because, like, for example, you guys, I'm in real estate outside of this, right? And the neighborhoods each kind of had their own plans, which were largely adhered to through the rezoning process and everything else. And so I know they will want to have input. But are you reaching out to them kind of outside of this to encourage them to help recruit neighbors to come to these meetings?
Yeah, and actually, we've partnered with Housing and Neighborhood Services
Okay.
because they're really the boots on the ground for that. So we're relying on them for that piece of it as well.
Awesome. And that's it for me. Thank you.
And if that's all for the presentation, we'll jump into the update on Planning Academy.
So as you all may remember, I'm gonna give you guys an update for 2040 Planning Academy and let you know about an update for this year and next year's program. So if you guys remember 2040 Planning Academy, next slide. 2040 Planning Academy began in 2016. And it's a program for residents who are interested in learning more about the role that planning plays in city building. Since its inception in 2016, we've held 5 in-person programs with a hiatus during the COVID years. As a reminder, the program goals are to help residents better understand the role that planning plays in building our communities, and for residents to feel empowered to participate more effectively and efficiently in all our departments' processes, so that they can play an active role in guiding future growth for our city. And in addition, we want to strengthen relationships in the community, both between residents and staff, and also between residents and their own communities. So as mentioned, up until now, all 5 of our program sessions have been in person. But because of the nature of our CAP work and our many workshops we are undertaking in 2023 and 2024, we decided to shift the program to be fully virtual. And so this allows us to do a few things. One, remove some of the heavy lift of in-person logistics and kind of relieve some of the meeting fatigue for the community. And then it also allows us to remove the class limit of 30 people. And it opens it to all people who are interested in joining. And then it also allows us to promote and incentivize active participation in the CAP process via the Planning Academy Passport, which I'll talk, via what we're calling the Planning Academy Passport, which I'll talk more about shortly. The program consists of 4 sessions in June and July. It'll include a virtual presentation and a live Q&A. It'll be live streamed, recorded, and then it'll become available online. The class program for the year includes Introduction and History of Planning, Community Planning, a topic on transportation, so that'll include CDOT, CATS, and CRTPO, and then closing with urban design and community character. So our Planning Academy Passport, which we'll pass around a little draft copy of it now. So the program has traditionally consisted of presentations, class activities, exercises, and homework. And then at the end of each program, participants would get a graduation certificate for the completion of the program. But for this new revised program, for participants to receive the graduation certificate, they would need to complete the checklist in the new Planning Academy Passport. So this is a fun new tool which would aim to encourage and incentivize participation in both the community area planning efforts and in the Planning Academy program. And it would take the place of the class activities and exercises and homework. And then so if participants want to get credit for the program and get that certificate, they would fill out the passport and then submit it to us by the end of the year. And so the checklist items include reviewing the community report, attending at least one workshop, watching all Planning Academy sessions, and for a bonus point, they have to share some project information using the Ambassador Toolkit. And then if they do all that, then they get a little graduation certificate, a tote bag, and for the bonus point, a travel mug. And so then there'll be an online option and a little hard copy option. And so we'll share these copies at the workshops and then during our office hours, and then we'll begin to promote the program like online soon. So that's our update. We're happy to take any feedback or questions.
So I'm gonna beat Commissioner Blumenthal. So I want to do it again. I love points. So competitive, so competitive. Now I might think of a point system for commissioners now, and I'm just joking. But I do want a tote bag. Can I buy one?
We don't have them for sale, but we do.
Uh-oh.
If you complete the whole passport, you can certainly.
Well, I think I just might.
Everything is for sale for the right.
Is the passport also available digitally?
Yes, so this is just a draft copy of it. So on the back side, there'll be a QR code for the online form and the online upload. So there'll be a form where you can this will be fully virtual, and at the end of the year you can submit it, and then it'll give us their information and we can give them their prizes at the end. But yeah, fully online too. And we don't know, we'll see what kind of participation we get. And then we'll plan to do the same thing in 2024. But for this year, at least, we'll see what kind of participation we get for 2023.
I can do one of these without registering since I'm live streaming. Yes,
You can do, what do you mean?
like if I don't register for the Community Area Planning Academy, I'm sorry, if I don't register for Planning Academy, you'll be streaming live.
Yeah, so
I
if
can
you
do-
don't watch it like live in the moment, it'll be recorded and put online, so you can watch it afterwards. Anytime throughout the year, and just submit it by the end of the year. And so in the passport, you'll see like watch all Planning Academy sessions, and you just have to briefly describe one thing you learned in each session. So even if you don't watch it like live in June and July, you can in the fall workshop, if someone gets one of these, then they can go back and watch the recording.
And I'll just add that this graduation certificates are in a gold gilded frame, so you all will want to make sure you do that. I'm just joking.
Yes. Well, they are actually in a nice little blue folder, so.
Commissioner Winiker.
When do you think that you'll start being ready to solicit participation, or and how do you want to do it? Obviously, I guess this is geared to, you can register anytime or after you finished it or whatever, but
Yeah.
do you want to see advance numbers, and when will that be ready?
I think, probably for the first workshops, we'll have the registration set up. Because we're gonna want to plan to hand these out during the workshops. And so I think we should have everything set up by then. Yeah.
Will you guys, if you don't mind, send us an email with, like when the registration link is active, so
Yeah.
that way we can promote it?
Yeah,
if you'd
yeah.
like.
And so we'll make it live, and then we'll probably do our standard, like a newsletter, email blast, and then like some social posts for these two. So yeah, we'll include you in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you guys had like 120 some odd applications for 30 slots last time
We
you
did.
did this. Are you fearful of the numbers that you might get for virtual attendance?
Well, I don't know. I think,
Concerned.
I guess it depends on how many people are gonna do the whole thing and submit it. So that's where I'm not sure. So I'm sure, I think we'll get lots of attendance, but I wonder how many people are actually gonna,
So
do
then
it.
second question is
who knows?
it,
But
per-
virtually, it's easier.
so it's a little less participatory?
Less hands-on.
Yeah, because if they just want to sign up to watch them, anyone can watch, and then it'll be like a live Q&A with the speakers, people can submit questions and comments during the events, and then we'll do a live Q&A with the speaker. But then in order for people to get the certificate and all that, then they would need to fill out and do a little work on their end. Whereas in the class, they would have to do exercises and activities. So
Right.
this kind of takes the.
I was
place of
just
that.
trying to imagine managing 200 people virtually trying to participate.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it's
We've done.
as participatory as an in-person session. Sealy.
So you said this is a draft?
This is just a draft, but if you catch anything, let me know.
Well, I would just say, as someone that's overhauling a lot of visuals for the museum I work for from an ADA perspective, I'd bring down the opacity of the map in the back. There's going to be quite a few people that are going to have difficulties reading this. I would
Okay.
also bring up the line weight a little bit, at least on the pieces that are in the teal blue.
Yeah,
That's just wanted to point that out. And that's it.
thank you. That's helpful.
There's no maximum number of you.
No.
Correct.
we don't
Have
think
you ever
so.
thought about partnering with CMS to get high school students involved?
No, but that's a great idea.
Because I feel like this is really geared towards classroom participation and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have touched base with planning over at CMS about advertising for the workshops, but that's a great idea. We can do it for the academy too.
I mean, it's our getting people, hook
Yeah.
them while they're young,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Cool.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Is this like a training the trainer sort of situation where next year you'll bring in someone that participated in years past to help kind of facilitate, or is this a y'all will staff will always be running it?
I think that, yeah, well, our long-term plan is to return back to the in-person academy. But the academy has kind of evolved over time and will continue to evolve. And for example, aviation has an academy. And so we're going to, get together with them and see what are some lessons we can learn from them. We do like to have graduates come back to the class and kind of give a little testimonial. So we haven't built it in this time, but maybe next time around, we could do something like that.
Is there a residency requirement?
So for the in-person academy, I think we had one person from the count because we had limited seats, but we did
Yeah.
have somebody that was, in an unincorporated part
In like
in-
ATJ.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for this, we haven't asked for residency requirements. And honestly, we get a lot of interest from other communities too about our planning academy, and that's fine. If somebody in California wants to do it and get a Charlotte mug, I think we'd be okay with that.
I only ask because the Civic Leadership Academy does have a residency requirement. So I wondered about planning. Any additional comments, questions? With that, I believe we are at the end of our agenda.
Motion to close.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting by Wilden and a second by Blumenthal. Seats empty is considered unanimous approval. Good night.